Sunday mornings used to hum with a quiet peace. Not happiness, not thrill, just a slow, steady calm that filled my bones like lukewarm water. I stood in front of the mirror, stripped to my underwear, sunlight carving soft gold lines across my thighs. I caught my reflection, not with pride, not even approval, more like clinical curiosity. I looked good, not flawless. Those years had faded, but polished, controlled, the kind of beauty that required conscious effort, and I still made it, even if no one was really watching anymore. He was downstairs, probably thumbing through the newspaper like always, sipping, his too sweet coffee, rooted in the comfort of repetition. He never forgot to ask how I slept, his voice drifting up the staircase, courteous and distant. I answered on instinct, not out of affection. We had been married long enough to shed the pretense of soulmates, yet not so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted. Not tenderly, urgently. I couldn't remember the last time his hands had reached for me with anything like hunger. His touch now was routine, mechanical. Not cold exactly, just safe, too safe. Work was no better. Gray carpets, gray walls, gray conversations, until one Friday. I stayed late to finish up the quarterly numbers. He knocked once before entering, never waiting for permission. His habit. He moved like he belonged to every room he entered, not with arrogance, but with an easy certainty. He needed my signature. Our fingers brushed when he handed me the pen. It was nothing, or maybe it wasn't. That fleeting contact sent a jolt through me. So fast my hand shook a little as I wrote. I'm not proud of how long I held on to the clipboard afterward, how long I let myself hover there before giving it back. That night, lying next to my husband, his back warm and still like a barrier, I closed my eyes and replayed that accidental touch. My breathing grew shallow. I told myself it was just static, nerves, cold air. But deep down I knew better. It had been real, and worse, it had been alive. The next morning, I wore lipstick to work, not red. He didn't look away. I pretended to check my phone, which buzzed just then, perfectly timed, like some cosmic prank. A message from my husband. Thinking of making pasta tonight. Red sauce or white, I typed back. Whatever you want, then erased it. Tried again. Red's fine. It felt absurd. So married. So polite. So wrong. By late afternoon, the act of being composed, diligent, untouchable wore me out. I closed my office door and exhaled, sinking into my chair, heels dangling off one foot, half on, half off. I wanted to feel again, not guilt, not shame, something raw, something alive. An hour before closing, an email pinged. Him, subject. Wednesday strategy review. Message. Can you stay after? Prefer to run through it without the full team. No smiley face, no subtext, officially. But I knew. At dinner, I sat across from my husband, watching him twirl spaghetti around his fork, listening to a story about a no-show. Client. I nodded at the right moments, laughed once, played the part perfectly, when he squeezed my hand across the table and asked, "You seem distracted. Everything okay at work?" I smiled. That careful, practiced smile women wear when lying is safer than telling the truth. Just busy, I said lightly. You know how it gets. Later, brushing our teeth side by side, he cracked a joke about our reflections in the mirror. I laughed too fast. Too thin, the sound echoed like someone I used to be. We turned off the lights. In bed, I lay still, listening to his breathing even out, staring up into the dark. I wasn't plotting. I wasn't dreaming. I was remembering. The weight of a hand on my hip, the suspended breath between mouths parting, the silent hum before sleep. And just before drifting under, I whispered a name into the darkness. Not my husband's. Wednesday came heavy and slow, a thick, sticky kind of day. Gray skies, the stale smell of burnt coffee lingering, everything too loud, every silence too full. I arrived early, not because I had extra work, because I couldn't stand waiting any longer. I wore a charcoal pencil skirt, a soft ivory blouse that whispered against my skin when I moved. Not revealing, but it knew. Beneath the polished blazer, it felt like a secret no one else could see. He didn't approach me all morning. Not during meetings, not passing in the hall. But the air shifted when he was near. Not tension, gravity, the kind that tilts your spine toward something even when you swear you're standing still. I drowned myself in emails, projects, numbers. The clock ticked like a metronome, dragging time out. 30 hit. The office emptied, zippers, laptops shutting, casual goodbyes floating through the halls. They had no idea, no clue what quiet world I was stepping into after they left. At 5:47. I stood in the break room, hands slightly trembling as I poured hot water into a mug. Heard his door click shut behind him, heartbeat shifting, body listening. He appeared beside me, not touching, not speaking, but close enough for my skin to register him. We didn't look at each other, just stood there, steam rising between us like a second language. Back in the conference room, the lights were mostly off, only a soft hallway glow left. He didn't turn anything on, just opened his laptop, motioned for me to sit next to him instead of across. I hesitated, then obeyed. The screen glowed between us, slides flickering past, words I barely heard. Performance metrics, project adjustments, something deliverables. I didn't really listen. I listened to the air between us, to my heartbeat quickening every time our sleeves brushed. He asked a question. I answered. Couldn't tell you what it was. Just remember how his eyes dropped to my mouth, then back to the screen. When the last slide passed, we sat in silence. Then, his hand found mine. Not forceful, not hesitant, just certain. I froze, then slowly turned my hand over, threading my fingers through his. A simple, small thing, but it cracked the dam inside me. I reached up, brushed an invisible speck of lint from his shoulder. Pointless, ridiculous. And he closed his eyes like that nothing touch unraveled him. Are you afraid? He asked, low. His voice didn't shake. It invited. I didn't answer. Not afraid of him. Not afraid of what we were doing. Afraid of how easy it had become. I stood, smoothed my skirt, walked toward the window. Gray city blurred beneath gray clouds. Tiny cars. Tiny people. Lives moving forward, blind. He came up behind me, not touching, but I felt the ghost of his breath against my neck, every nerve on high alert. I closed my eyes. I think about it, I said, all the time. Not a confession, a surrender. He didn't say anything else. He didn't need to. I went back to my desk, sent a pointless email, organized a folder that didn't need organizing. Hands steady, soul trembling, at home. My husband was on the phone laughing with his sister. I kissed his cheek. He squeezed my wrist gently, smiling. How was your day? He mouthed. Fine, I mouthed back. And it was. That was the part that scared me most. Friday morning, he left for a fishing trip. A long-planned cabin weekend with college friends. He kissed my forehead, called me his girl, told me not to wait up, said he might stay until Monday. I stood barefoot in the kitchen, dish towel in hand, though nothing was wet, watching the door click shut. The silence changed. Not empty, open, like a stage cleared for the real play to begin. No footsteps upstairs, no pages turning, just the clock ticking and my own breath, deeper than before. I didn't plan anything, not officially. I cleaned, scrubbed, aired out the house, washed the sheets. Not for guests, not for show, for something else entirely. I shaved, lotioned, every stroke deliberate, every motion a vow. The red lace set, untouched in tissue paper for years, I laid it out like an offering. After the shower, I dressed piece by piece. The lingerie first, smooth and fierce. Then the silk robe, ivory with black piping, usually saved for coffee and half-read novels. My makeup was careful, not to look younger, not to impress, to be awake, to be seen. I poured a glass of cold white wine, sat by the window. No music, the silence full enough. Then, I sent a text. Simple. If you're nearby, I made too much coffee. No emojis, no games, his response. 15 minutes. I didn't pace. I didn't fidget. I stood once, checked the mirror, then waited. Breathing. The doorbell rang. I opened it immediately. He stood there, gray coat, dark sweater, no briefcase, no excuse. His eyes traveled from my face down my body and back again, unapologetic. I stepped aside. He entered. I locked the door, not from fear, but to hold the air inside. At first, we didn't touch, just stood across the living room, waiting, feeling. Then he moved forward. Slow. Testing. I didn't flinch. The kiss came. Real, deep, certain. His hands found my waist. My body melted forward. I arched instinctively, parted my lips, without thinking. He pulled back, breathing hard. "This is going to get complicated," he murmured. "It already is," I answered. No more words after that. We didn't undress. We didn't pretend it was romance. Just mouths, hands, breath. Urgent, deliberate, like we'd been building toward this for months. When he left, it wasn't rushed. He kissed my shoulder, said nothing, just slipped away. I stood by the window watching his car fade down the street, the second half of my wine untouched on the table. Later, I slipped into bed, still wearing the dark red lace. I didn't change. I didn't want to. The house smelled of lemon cleaner and something heavier. Something like permission. I realized, lying there in the dark, I wasn't waiting anymore. I was wanting all. We argued. For 2 hours. I laughed when I was supposed to. He told me they'd stay an extra night and head out early Monday. His voice, familiar, warm, careful, only made the coldness inside me sharper. Not guilt this time. Something deeper. An absence. Mine. When I hung up, I stayed in the kitchen, palms pressed to the counter, staring at a bowl of lemons I had no plans of using. The moment hung there, suspended, like the breath between a question and the answer. That wrecks everything. Monday came gray and heavy, the air charged with something unspoken. He came home mid-morning, dropped his duffel in the entryway, and kissed me like nothing had shifted. I kissed back, automatic, distracted by the lingering scent of his cologne on my robe from 2 days ago, untouched. He unpacked, humming a tune under his breath. From the hallway, I watched, the way his shoulders curved forward, the neat, ritualistic way he lined up his toiletries, everything about him, safe, predictable, clean. That evening, he made a dinner reservation, Mediterranean, across town. Said it had been too long since we'd gone out. He wore the blue button-down he knew I liked. I slipped into a muted green wrap dress, soft wool against bare skin, nothing underneath except a gold lace bodysuit. I couldn't explain why. Maybe I wanted to feel alive again. Maybe I wanted to see if he'd notice anything at all. He didn't. Over dinner, he spoke of a new project, a potential promotion. He asked about my week. I smiled, lied, sipped wine. The falsehood wrapped itself around me like an old, familiar coat. When we got home, he lit a candle in the bedroom, something from our early years, now rare enough to feel almost strange. I lay on the bed and watched him undress, feeling nothing but the quiet observation of a ritual emptied of meaning. His hands were gentle, rehearsed. His kisses trailed my skin, murmuring that I was beautiful. But my body stayed silent. No spark, no breath catching. I tried. God, I tried. Then, as he fumbled with the clasp of the bodysuit, he smiled. Sweet, clumsy. New? He asked, teasing lightly. I nodded, and something hollow cracked wide open inside me, because someone else would have never asked. Someone else would have simply known. I let it happen. My body moved the way it was meant to, responded where it should. But my mind was elsewhere, locked behind the memory of someone who never needed permission to touch what already belonged to him. Afterward, I lay still beside him. He drifted to sleep quickly, his arm heavy over my waist. I stared at the ceiling, at the soft dance of candlelight on the walls, and realized I hadn't spoken a single word during the entire act. Not out loud. Inside, my mind screamed, not for forgiveness, not even for answers, just to be seen. I rose quietly, wrapped myself in a blanket, and sat by the window. Outside, a couple walked their dog, laughter faint and drifting upward like smoke. I checked my phone. Nothing. I told myself that was good. And still, I waited. My body betrayed me, quickened breath, tight fists, the quiet hum of hope beneath practiced indifference. Later that night, stepping into the building, I felt it instantly. The shift, the thickened air, the space between memory and want. There was a corporate party, plastic wine glasses, bad hors d'oeuvres, brittle laughter. I hated these things, the forced belonging, the manufactured warmth. I arrived late. The room was already buzzing, too bright, too loud. I felt him before I saw him, a gravitational pull tightening every nerve. He stood across the room, wine in hand, deep in conversation. But his eyes found me, stripped me. I didn't approach. I made the rounds, smiled, nodded, played the part. Every tilt of my head, every shift of my hip, unconscious calculation. 15 minutes later, he was beside me. No hello, no smile, just his nearness, dense, undeniable. You're glowing, someone said, passing by. A secret, they teased. We stayed silent, the noise around us blurred. I slipped through the side door to the balcony, needing air, needing something real. The cold hit hard, honest and brutal. I leaned against the rail, city lights bleeding into the night. I heard the door click shut behind me. He was there. You're cold, he said, not offering warmth, just naming it. We stood there, the space between us charged and trembling. I shouldn't have come, I whispered. But you did. Silence stretched, heavy, aching. I didn't move. Neither did he. Gently, he reached for my hand. I let him. His palm was solid and impossibly warm. Have you ever been happy? He asked, voice low. I couldn't answer. I didn't trust any words. I had left. He lifted my hand to his chest. Heartbeat frantic, alive. Does it feel right here? He asked. Still, I said nothing, but I didn't pull away either. I was the one who stepped back first. I turned without looking and whispered, "I have to go, and not because I want to." He didn't follow, but I knew this wasn't over. Not for him, not for me. The next morning, life resumed its well-worn rhythm. The kettle whistled, a chair scraped back, the clink of spoon against porcelain. My husband was already dressed, phone in one hand, coffee in the other. He smiled, the simple, surface kind, nothing searching, nothing asking. "Sleep okay?" he asked. "Fine," I lied. We moved through breakfast like a pair of actors who had long ago forgotten their lines, but still showed up for curtain call. The walls were lined with photos, smiling on boats, mountains behind us, proof of something that once felt permanent. At work, the hours dragged. Emails blurred into one another. The mechanical click of keys filled the hollow space between breaths. When he passed my desk, he didn't look at me.